An Unlikely Yogi by Mike Fecht is a memoir that chronicles his journey from a life filled with stress and challenges to one of peace and mindfulness through the practice of yoga. Despite being an unexpected candidate for yoga due to his background, lifestyle, or preconceived notions, Fecht shares how yoga transformed his life physically, mentally, and spiritually. The book offers insight into overcoming skepticism, the power of self-discovery, and the unexpected benefits that yoga can bring to anyone's life. All right, Mike Fecht. Oh my God. It's been 4 years since I had you on the show last time. You're doing yoga for men. How have you been, man? It's good to see you. It's been ages.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. And I appreciate what you had to say about the book in terms of the intro. That's very kind. Yeah, it's been an interesting 4 years. I mean, for everybody, right? I mean, COVID certainly changed a lot for all of us. But no, we were in, we were in St. Pete in 2017, moved to Maryland, 2018, and then moved back to Atlanta, or the Atlanta area. We're outside of Atlanta now. 2021, and we were, like a lot of people, took advantage of what was going on with the housing market and bought a house sight unseen and packed up everything to get back down south again and all that. But yeah, no, we've been since we've been back, wrote the book, which was kind of well, what was interesting about it, I think, even as the idea to finish it started when we were about to leave Maryland. I just started having these thoughts that it's time to finish it. It was like, you're going to have a window when you get back, and maybe this is it. And if this is it, it's time to get the monkey off of my back, because I had, I think, upwards of 300 pages sitting on Google Drive that I'd written from 2009 to 2012 or 13 or so, before I just kind of shelved it. And it was really interesting. We get back to Atlanta. I'm wrapping up my job in Maryland, and I'm starting to build this new website on mindfulness and meditation. And I shot out this request to everybody on social media, and I was like, look, I'm building this website. If you have any testimonials from my classes, or having worked with me in the past, please let me know. And I had this guy shoot me a message, and it's like, hey, I've been taking your class on YouTube for years, and I'm a writer. And if you need any copy for your website, just let me know. I'd be glad to help. So not one to just dismiss opportunities like that. I hit him up and just said, hey, I've got this book that I started after my wife was killed in 2009, and he was like, well, just send over what you have. And after a couple hours, he was like, you have a book. Like, this is already a book. And he goes, and I want to help you finish it. I want to help you write it. So I guess this was November-ish of 21. And I'm telling you, within 2 weeks, I would drop my son off at the bus stop. I'd come home. I'd write from 8:30 in the morning until about 1 or 1:30 in the afternoon. He would pick it up, edit it, or rewrite whatever he thought needed rewritten, kick it back to me that evening, and then there was homework for what I was writing the following day. And we did this November, December, January, February, and by March we had the first draft completely finished, like almost 400 pages. It was a pretty crazy process to get there. And then John decided that he had done what he needed to do, and I could go sell it and do whatever else needed to be done. And when I'd been through kind of the process of trying to find a literary agent and get a book deal before, and know how difficult putting the proposal together is. So I started looking for a consultant to help me out. And I really didn't have a whole lot of money to be able to pull it off. And of course, I ended up finding this woman who's in Brooklyn, who wrote a book about being a young widow. a writer, and about her whole journey of meeting someone in Australia, being widowed, young, and moving to New York and becoming this writer. So I bought her book first and read it, and I was like, yes, she'll understand, right? Like she'll know exactly where I'm coming from as a young widower. And so I hit her up, and it was match, right? And I couldn't believe what she was charging, that I was able to afford someone like her. So anyway, it's kind of funny though, as we get going, it was like, let's shoot over the manuscript. I sent it over to her thinking, okay, now I'm going to get this proposal back and we're going to sell this book. And she comes back and she said, she goes, I wrestled with this, but I have to tell you that if my advice is to make sure that you have a commercially viable book, you need to rewrite this. And I was like, but I also took it as, I didn't hire her to lie to me. And so I took her advice, and her advice was that she thought the first draft was a little too dark for too long. And that she needed to know more. She wanted it to be more yoga centric. I want to know more about how your yoga practice helped you. I want to know what you were thinking when you were on the mat, and what you were going through, and how your practice, helped you in your shift and everything that you were had going on. So I took it upon myself. I dove back in. I ripped out probably 7 or 8 chapters and just threw them in the trash, and rewrote probably a good third of the book, and really dove in. And that was the other thing, about writing this book was, part of the reason that I ever put it on the shelf to begin with was that I was moving forward with my life. And I felt like, I couldn't escape 2009, 2010 because I was constantly just writing about it. And when I had met Barbara, my wife now, and we started moving forward, it was just like this just isn't the time. I just reached that point where it was like, I got to put this away because this is not now. And it's taking away from my now. And so going back into it, it was, while I was writing from 8 to 1:30, I was living in 2009 and 2010. And then my son gets home from school and my wife gets home from work, and it's like, oh, hey, oh yeah. And it was difficult, to say the least. And it was a lot of things,
Yeah, I can't really see how that would work. I mean, that's an impossible balance. Knowing the backstory myself, and just thinking about that must have been impossibly difficult to really, not necessarily balance it, but just to once, the end of writing came at 1 o'clock or whatever, to just completely shift. It's not like you were just writing about your time in LA as a surfer and you can just close the book and get back to normal life. It was a major, major thing that took place in your life. So I can't imagine how you managed to do that successfully. That's impressive.
Well, thanks. It was, there were stumbles along the way. There were times when I will say this, I also knew that for the book to be authentic, that I kind of had to let myself go there a little bit. So it was like, I went through, there were some weeks where it was like, I didn't shave. I probably didn't shave for most of the time that we wrote the book. Like I went there, but there was just this conscious effort of, once I got my son, I was done that day. Do you know what I mean? So it was, and I've had enough, I think, without diving into it 100% every single day for a 4-month period to write the book, part of the whole trauma piece and that I shared with people in the book is that, I don't know that there's a day that goes by that isn't impacted by what happened then. So there's always an awareness of it. But yeah, I mean, for that lengthy period, like it was kind of Twilight Zone-ish, you know, like, yeah, it was really weird space during the day. 'Cause I haven't visited on that level, those kinds of emotions and a lot of the things that even happened. I mean, you just, through the years, you know, your mind does you the favor of letting go of things. And so to dive back and even write about it, then there were a lot of other memories that popped up that, you know, you hadn't really thought about in a long time. But, you know, Barb gave me the space to be able to do it. She knew how important it was to me. And even as difficult it was for her, you know, I mean, from her perspective, it's like, man, we've been together, you know, at the time I was writing the book, we've been together for like 12 years now. Can you let this go? You know, or can, you know, and she never once said that. You know, she never once, you know, insinuated that. There were some times when, sure, she felt probably like a third wheel, you know, as I'm writing about this whole part of my life. But I did my best not to ever make her feel that way. And I think, and just having an awareness of that. And then with my son, it's easy because he doesn't know a whole lot about that. You know, he knows that it's interesting because his birthday's coming up. He's going to be 11. He knows at this point still, even he knows that I was married before his mom, and he knows that she died and that she passed away. He doesn't know any of the specifics behind it yet because it's just not age appropriate.
Yeah,
you know, I can hope to keep it that way for a while, but with him, it's just, you know, he just wants me there. So it's just, that was an easy switch to flip. But no, I appreciate the acknowledgement that the period of writing the book definitely was different. And it, long story short, you know, my consultant helped me with actually 2 more rewrites. It wasn't just one. It was, I sent her that back. She said it was great.
I was going to say just one rewrite. Like,
yeah, no, it was.
You only had to do one.
Yeah, it was a set. There was probably a second complete rewrite, and then a third. Well, then there was a third final edit too. So, but I, you know, it was something I felt inspired to do, you know, 14, 15 years ago. When it first hit me, and I even write about that in the book, I had no idea of the life that I had to live and the journey that I had to kind of take to actually get to the point where, as Virginia said, I had a commercially viable book at that point, manuscript at that point. So I had a little difficulty getting some play at first with the literary agents. And then I honestly believe that had I waited and given it another shot out there under the new title, because there were some other titles that just didn't really grab me. I think if I would have gone with An Unlikely Yogi and gotten that out there with this name and been patient enough, that we probably could have gotten some play. But I self-published it through Amazon. And it was really one of the main reasons was I have people in my life that I wanted to have them read the book. And so it was more important for me to get it out there than it was to, you know, sell it to an agent and a big publishing house right away. Like the motives behind it were, I really wanted to get it done and get it out there. So,
and the actual writing of going through the process of all of the stuff that you took out, I think personally, having, you know, like, as I'm a big proponent of going to like therapy and talking with someone and getting stuff out and unpacking things. Otherwise, like you said, you just let it go over the years. I don't necessarily know that maybe even really happened, but you kind of just compartmentalized it, or maybe just tucked it away along the way. And then once you started writing it, I'm sure all these emotions and things just started coming up, and like that part of your day must have been so impossibly difficult at certain times. But to write it and get it out, that's, even if it's not in the book, the fact that it was done probably just helped immensely. So I want to talk about breaking stereotypes. So why do you consider yourself an unlikely yogi, and how did your story challenge these stereotypes?
No, I appreciate you going there. Well, I think, when I first started practicing yoga in around what was it? About 2007, I think is when it was when I started practicing yoga. It was still, it wasn't commercialized to the level that it is now. Most of the yoga studios, or a lot of the yoga studios, were like live workspaces where, you had this yoga teacher that owned or rented out this little space, and they hop out of bed and then their studio was right there. I mean, it was just like, and now, it's very commercialized to they're branded, they're corporate. So back then, I think a lot of the yoga that was out there was still much more authentic to yoga and the purpose of the practice. And at the same time, there were a lot less men practicing yoga in the West, at least, because of stigmas and stereotypes associated with the practice. I mean, if you look at the history of yoga and as it came to the West, before it came to the West, it was a practice created by men for men in India. But I think, and this is just, I'll share my opinion on this because it really is just an opinion, but someone that's been in that world quite a lot. I think as it came to the West, we typically gravitate toward those things that we're good at. And then once we find we're good at something, we explore that a little bit further. And I think the idea of the physical practice of yoga has so much to do with what's going on with our hips, our spine, and to try to approach any of the basic yoga postures for men is really difficult. I mean, because we tend to be tighter in our hips and in those areas, whereas women, their hips are naturally open. So, from day one, I could take your average 20-something-year-old woman, and she would be able to do probably 90% of the postures and have them at least look somewhat like, they would look if they were in perfect alignment. Whereas you or I hops on right away, and it's like, whoa. And because it's so difficult and because it's so foreign, it's not something that most guys are going to want to continue to explore. Not to mention the fact that, if there aren't a whole lot of guys participating in it, then it kind of, I think through the years, it gets this idea of that it's either, it's a practice for, and not just women in general, but I mean, it was really hijacked by white women in the West. I mean, if you look at Yoga Journal for a lot of years, no one like you or I was ever going to be on the cover of Yoga Journal.
Yeah.
But it's who's picking it up, who's gravitating toward it. So I'm going to market to those people. I mean, that makes sense. And so, back then there really weren't a whole lot of guys practicing. There weren't any straight guys practicing. That was the whole thing. The stigmas and stereotypes, it says for women or gay men, period, which is kind of ridiculous. And that was what I found once I got into it and I gave it a shot. Sure. At that point, I'm in my mid 30s. I finally decided to take it up with my wife's coddling me or prodding me all the time to go in and do something about my back. Right. So I finally go in and I practice with her. And then it's just like, it's like anything else that once you actually open your mind to it, you discover that a lot of the things a lot of the preconceived notions you're bringing with it are false. And so I couldn't deny how it was making me feel physically. It was making me feel better, but also the clarity and the awareness and definitely the more of the emotional regulation that came along with it through time were just total game changers for me in my life. So at that point, I could care less what anybody thinks about me and what I'm doing. And it's just I'm doing those things that I think are beneficial to me and and my health and my family and my relationships. So, 2007, I got in and got started with a practice. I would be that guy, like, for years. I could go into a studio and be the only guy in a room with like 50 women, but I had my setup. I had my mat and my towel and everything else. I knew what I was doing, and and I loved it. And then that eventually led to becoming an instructor and teaching and working with professional athletes and taking it into that world. And I was able to do that successfully because I'm a big guy. I'm an inflexible guy. I move in the same kind of body that they're moving in. So I understood how to break the practice down and give different options for postures and different modifications in the practice to make it work for them. Because, in the West, we've come to see yoga as a form of exercise, a form of fitness, that sort of thing, where, the real fundamental reason for practicing yoga is to become present. And if you wanted to go in and take it down a spiritual path, you could take it there too. But I think just from a scientific perspective, it's the breathing and the mental and emotional benefits that you get from that are the foundation for yoga. It's just that as it's come to the West, we've turned it into this. So anyway, in terms of overcoming stereotypes and that sort of thing, at this point, I'm 6'1", 250 pounds, and there aren't a whole lot of guys like me that, are walking into the yoga studio and walking up to the front of the studio as the instructor, instead of rolling out the mat in the back of the class and hoping, nobody notices me. So, and I've always,
did you say 250?
Yeah.
Wow. So you've kept a lot of like muscle size then, because that's a lot of weight and you don't look overweight. So you must be really strong then.
Thanks. I would like to, and I'm doing it now. I want to drop a few pounds, but I mean, from when you and I worked together, I was about 235. So I'm really only about, 15 pounds heavier than I was when I was working with you. And this is 20, that's 20 years ago. But I lifted a lot. Like the last few years, I decided to hit the gym really hard and lift. So it's been, lifting throughout the years. And yoga was more of a complement, I think, to all of that from a physical perspective. The last few years, I was doing so much in the gym. So yeah, I mean, but I can still, it's interesting. I'm 50 and I can move in my body in ways that I couldn't when I was 20 and, super athletic and 220 pounds, So, there's I'll always, and then the most common thing I hear from people once they start practicing, especially when they're a little bit older, is, God, I wish I would have done this when I was younger. And that's probably my greatest regret, is not having, been exposed to this on that level in my 20s, where it really could have been even more influential. But
I think that's one of the things that I notice about fitness now versus fitness when we were in our, late 20s, early 30s or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's so much more cultural now. Like fitness is just everywhere, whereas it was everywhere before, but we didn't have social media back then. So it's almost as if it's just a part of what you're supposed to do as somebody in their late teens, early 20s. It's like, if you're not at the gym, why aren't you working out? Why aren't you doing some sort of mind care type thing, some sort of anything? Because there's so much of it out now. Whereas before it was like athletes, bodybuilders, and like, that was just it. there was no in between, at least as far as I saw it. I mean, models and things like that, people that had to be in shape for their job or to make money. Whereas now, if you don't work out, people look at you sideways as a younger person, not as an older person. So I think they're going to benefit greatly from that. And a lot of those younger people are going to be in the position that you wish that you or even myself were in when we were in our 20s, doing things that we didn't do until later in our life.
Oh, I agreed 100%. The landscape has changed. And kids are more open to it. Well, it's interesting that we're talking about this because I just picked up, I'm going to be working with a high school baseball team in South Florida this year, kind of as their mental skills coach, and using my courses that I have online with them to work on mindfulness, yoga, meditation, and implementing those kinds of things. And when I was doing this 11 years ago down in Miami, it wasn't, there was more, I had to coerce people a little bit more about giving it a shot, than I even felt, and it's like I'm a witch doctor. You had the few, but like if I mentioned names, it wouldn't shock you that they were the ones that came down and said, "Hey, I want the yoga guy." Right. It was like when Colin Kaepernick came in to do his off-season training, he wanted yoga, like he asked for it. Some of the other guys that I worked with, they were, the elite athletes, and to that point of they were the ones that we were looking at. They're always looking for that next edge. So, when your routine, your daily routine is I wake up at 5 a.m., I'm in the gym by 6, I'm doing recovery at 11, I'm doing yoga at noon, like the way those guys, because the ones that play at that level, that's the discipline that they already have. So like when I was going into their world, a lot of times I was learning just as much from them as they were from me, because I was fascinated by the discipline that they had and to look for more work. That's always the thing. And one of the difficult things in working with athletes is that the last thing they want to do is add more physical work to what they already do, which is why you really, if you're working with people like that, like I did, you have to understand all of the other movement that they're involved in so that you're not overtraining with a yoga practice of all things. But from then until now, I think about where I was and what I had to do and the conversation that I had to have with people about what yoga was and all that, to having a high school coach that's a former teammate of mine call me up and say, "Hey, what would you think about working with my guys once a week and taking one of our workout days and devoting it to mental skills training?" Is fascinating. I'm working as an adjunct here in Georgia 1 day a week at a local school, teaching mindfulness and yoga. So it's just, through time, the benefits are there. That's it's funny because like I spoke about earlier about yoga coming to the West, and it like everything else, it evolves. So while there are certain things that might have brought it to the West and popularized it, now that it's out there and the benefits are out there, you can't keep it away from people, and it's just more widely accepted. I think COVID also, in terms of the mental health piece, we all went through COVID, and at that time, of course, that's when mental health really became, important for everyone to be paying attention to. And, there's just no denying that mindfulness is a practice, and mindfulness being the umbrella with the idea of like meditation, yoga, jogging can be a mindfulness practice, but, engaging in some mindfulness practices to deal with all the craziness that we all have going on upstairs, and it's really that simple. So, but different people, I was just talking to my business partner a little while ago. I think it's just gotten to the point where, practicing mindfulness makes you a better person, no matter who you are. But you can also use it for, a lot of different things. It's a tool. So if my entry point is I'm a pro athlete and I'm looking to get stronger mentally, so I start practicing meditation, and that makes me more aware and it allows me to tune out the noise around me while I'm playing and allows me to be in the zone while I'm playing. Well, then it's not like that switch gets shut off when they go home. and they have an argument with a family member, and rather than respond emotionally, they're able to take a moment and take a deep breath and come back and add to the relationship that they have at home. Like, it's just, however that comes in, it then just impacts every part of your life in a positive way. And I think we're going to continue to see even more application for it. You're going to see it because everyone on the planet right now is addicted to this thing. And I would say this is probably, when people talk about dangers to society, this is it. And we're all there. And, you're driving down the street. All you have to do is see how many people are actually looking in their lap instead of looking at the road ahead. And it's frightening. So, it's something I see, I can't imagine having done it now for 17 years, having had at least a yoga practice and then having it expand to what it is. I can't imagine anybody trying to make it through the world today without it. Like, that's scary. It's scary. Because when I see what people are going through, and then that they might not have that thing, or that be able to have that awareness, it can be a pretty difficult go of it these days.
Yeah, that mindfulness piece, that I was watching Wimbledon a few weeks ago, and this happens almost every tournament I watch when it comes to tennis, at least. Mm-hmm. Something happens on the court, whether they get a bad call or maybe they missed a shot they know they should have made and it ended up costing them the set or whatever. Depending on who it is on the court, and this happens in other sports as well, I'm sure, but because tennis is such an individualistic sport, it's easier to tell when you're playing by yourself. They melt down. And you can see they're going to lose the next so many games. You can kind of tell they're not, until they start to get out of their own head about what happened 10 minutes ago. And the stronger they are mentally and the more capable they are of recentering themselves and being more present, the quicker they get back on track. So that's a huge component to any type of sports, I feel. I know, like, even from a personal standpoint, if I'm going to the gym, I have to get myself ready in my head to go to the gym. I can't just go into the gym and pick up 300 pounds off the floor any day. I have to be ready for that, Mm-hmm. And if I'm not, then it's going to be a shitty workout. Mm-hmm. And one of those on Friday, I think it was, or maybe it was Friday. And, or Thursday actually, and I didn't go back to the gym until yesterday. So, if somebody's just getting started, say they're a beginner, what kind of advice would you have for somebody who maybe even like yourself may have felt that you didn't fit the yogi or yoga or mindfulness mold? So how can they start their journey with yoga, and what should they expect in the beginning stages?
Okay, I'm gonna a little bit of self-promotion.
Yeah.
First of all, we have a group on Facebook called Yoga for Beginners. My business partner started. I think it's probably got 20,000 people in this group, and it's really good. So first thing I would say is go join the group and go ask any questions that you might have. PresentStateWellness.com is our website. I have courses up there. I have classes in there for beginners, links to a lot of the YouTube classes that we have. I have a YouTube class called Yoga for Big Guys that is sitting at I think it's probably over 130,000 views at this point. Read the comments, because the comments alone will inspire you to want to roll out the mat and take that class. If there's like anything that any work I've ever done that I'm really proud of, it's just the way that class is played out, because it's helped a lot of people start a yoga practice that might not have been able to, and who were searching for it for a long time. And it works. I would tell people to forget about the name, the whole Yoga for Big Guys thing, because that's just who we were trying to appeal to at the time, and working specifically with men. It's an incredible beginner's class for anyone. Like, it's got I communicate modifications in it really well, and it's a complete practice. Like, it involves the meditative aspect of yoga, and it's not just like a class you do just to take a workout. So I would definitely point you in those three directions: the YouTube classes, presentstatewellness.com, and the Facebook group. But the main thing is that in terms of mindfulness, and my business partner and I we were joking about this earlier, because something always happens in our lives that like points us right back to, this is what we're supposed to be doing, and this is what we're supposed to be communicating to people. Because I think sometimes when you talk about yoga can be even too much of an entry point for people, like just the idea of getting on a yoga mat and bending my body in different places. Well, mindfulness is really, it's ultimately about self-awareness, right? Like, and you have to have self-awareness to have a truly objective view of the world around you. You know, otherwise it's just your own personal experiences are going to dictate, you know, how you react and respond to things. But being able to be quiet enough upstairs to actually observe yourself, you know, can give you a much more realistic idea of what's going on in the world around you, and how you can relate to that, and how you can manage your emotions and the anxieties and all of that. So I think it really comes down, like a conscious breathing practice is the place to start. Period. It's I don't know if you're familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh. Was a so Thich Nhat Hanh was a Vietnamese Buddhist monk. He just passed away. It was like last year or the year before. But I think he wrote hundreds of books. But he was a Vietnamese Buddhist monk who taught other monks during the Vietnam War how to die with compassion in their heart for the people who were killing them. And then understanding the world needing meditation is what he talked about. But you kind of use meditation, mindfulness interchangeably a little bit. But he knew that if you could get people to just have a conscious breathing practice, which is a form of meditation, just being aware of your breath, right? Just closing your eyes, sitting up tall, taking nice deep breaths in and out of your nose, and letting that be your point of focus, right? It's the simplest form of meditation that you can do. And I would tell people to start there and start doing it often, to take times during the day to just, it's magical. There's a quote by Thich Nhat Hanh that I used to shared with my students in the classroom. It's something to the effect, I'm not going to nail this, but it's that thoughts or anxious thoughts float by like clouds in a windy sky, but conscious breathing is my anchor. And so you can meditate anywhere at any time in the middle of anything. And that is and I teach this all the time, just closing your eyes, being aware of the breath, and breathing deeply in through the nose and out through the nose. And the number one thing people say when they start a meditation practice is, it wasn't for me because I couldn't get my mind to settle down. Like, I guess I'm just one of those people. I can't ever get my mind to settle down.
That was my next question. Because I hear that all the time from people where they're like, I can't sleep because I can't shut down. So I was literally about to ask you, would this be something that would be advantageous for somebody that can't shut it off?
Absolutely. Because you're trying too hard. That's the catch, is that you cannot actively shut down your mind and shut down your thinking. In Buddhism, there's this concept of the monkey mind, and that the mind operates like a monkey. It's always bouncing from one thing to the next. So if you're going to tell yourself, I'm trying to shut it down, it's an endless fight, because you're just going to hang on to what it is that you're thinking about. So the idea is that I just need to let go of the control. Like, let's go all the way there. Intrusive thoughts, right? Like really scary, nasty, crazy, the thoughts that everyone has that makes you think, am I a lunatic? And it's like, no. If you act on them, you are.
Yes.
But I'll use my experience as an example, and I know you'll appreciate this. So, in the days following my then wife's murder in 2009, I had thoughts of killing certain people, and it tore me apart. Right? Like, how can I feel this way? But at the same time, and it didn't take too terribly long because I didn't allow it to drive myself crazy. Because of my mindfulness practice, because of my yoga practice, I also recognize that, if I walk this back a little bit and I go, well, anyone that has had the experience that I have over the last 2 weeks, it would be really normal for that person to be thinking those things.
Absolutely.
So am I crazy, or am I just dealing with life just went off the rails a little bit for me at this time? And so I was able to find some grace in that for myself, and just to be able to have that, to be able to look and go, no, you're not crazy. And you know what? And in that, I was able to process those emotions because, I allowed myself to cry and to grieve and to feel bad for me. Nobody should be having these feelings. Nobody should be having these thoughts. Like, no. And the only reason you're having them is because this is what happened in your life. And so, no, it doesn't make you crazy. It makes you human. And then that's okay. And when you start to learn to let go of the control of those thoughts, then they tend to, find their own way out. And I think in mindfulness and in meditation, it's about letting go of the control of the thought, but you have to find something else that you're trying to anchor your attention to. So the simplest way is the breath, but you can also you could do a meditation over a candle, right? You could just put a candle out in front and just stay fixed on the candle, get into your breathing, focus on creating a consistent breath. And then when you let go of the control of the thought and you're focusing on the breath, just give it time. It's like and if it's brand new to you, then it's probably going to take more time to feel a little bit of serenity and some calm than it is for somebody who's practicing it every single day. Because one of the things about a practice is that the more often that you practice it, there are residual effects to it. Like if I do a yoga practice today, if I do a really heavy physical yoga practice today, I'm getting residual effects. I'm going to feel a little bit calmer tomorrow than I would have if I hadn't practiced today, and probably into Wednesday and Thursday, however many days. So if you do practice on a regular basis, then it does start to seep into all of those other little parts of your life. And you do start to develop an ability, not necessarily to flip a switch, on and off, but at least to adjust a little quicker. If something happens that without a meditation practice 20 years from now or 20 years ago, I would have been a disaster. That same thing can happen now. And not that I might not be upset or not that I might not react even in the moment. But there's an awareness there. Okay, I just need to slow things down and I need to be present. And then I can deal with all of this a little bit better rather than fueling fire, what's going on emotionally. So conscious breathing practice. I would say this. There's a lot of different apps out there at this point that people can do to help start a meditation practice. Yeah. Headspace is a great one. Calm is another one where you can go on and basically put in, your experience. Like a brand new person starting a meditation practice, and the Headspace will help guide you along the way and help you build that. But that's where it would all start. I love yoga. I I love the physical, and I love all the benefits of a yoga practice, but I think the root of everything is meditation. And you can access that most easily by a conscious breathing practice.
Do you have a breathing? I just auditioned to read for Calm, by the way. When you said it, it kind of made me feel away, because I was like, oh yeah, they haven't called me back. I didn't get Do you have a video, or maybe like a series of videos on your YouTube or on the website specifically for people looking to learn about breathing? Because I hear about that a lot. And actually that audition that I read, that was the main focus of the read, was about breathing in and out, and getting you to relax.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a lot of content on the website. If you go to the website, I think it'll kick you over to YouTube. There are a few videos in there talking about breath work and breathing and different types of breath work. There's all different types of different breathing in a yoga practice. I keep it simple. Like I found one that works for me, and it helps, calm the nervous system. That it's called Ujjayi breathing, and the premise behind it, you're breathing deeply in through the nose and out through the nose. If you're in through the nose and out through the mouth, everything kind of escapes, right? But I can control in through the nose and out through the nose. Now, it's called the victorious breath in English, and it's because you create this sound when you're breathing that, I'll see if I can, with the mic, if you can hear me here, but it's, so it's easier. The exhale is easy. Like you can figure out the exhale the first time you try it. Keeping the back of the throat a little constricted on the inhale is a little bit more difficult to master. Like I've been doing this type of breathing for 17 years now, so I can kind of just like dip right into it. But what's interesting about it, and what I always love about it too, is that when a lot of these different modalities, I guess you would say, were being developed, nobody had the science behind it, right? Like it was just like, oh no, you do this and then you feel this. And I'm fascinated by this breath work, because what you do is you slightly constrict the back of the throat. So as you're breathing in, there's kind of this Darth Vader sound going in. And then as you're exhaling, it's the same thing. It's like one technique they used to teach it is they'll say on the exhale is to act like you're fogging a mirror, and then close your mouth and put your tongue on the roof of your mouth as you exhale. So it's kind of the sound.
Right.
But as you start to master it, it becomes something that is very slow, very controlled, very methodical. Like I'm controlling every portion of that breath. The sound and the movement of the breath through the back of the throat stimulates your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve controls your fight or flight. So if you're essentially, every time you're breathing, it's like you're just tapping that light switch to shut off the fight or flight, right? And then you do that long enough, and then it's, So in addition to the mental work that you're doing of allowing those thoughts to come and go as I'm bringing my attention to my breath, there's also that physiological experience that you're having where we're stimulating the vagus nerve, and that's shutting off the fight or flight. So it's like you got at least two different processes going on that bring you mentally and physically into the moment. So it's sitting with that breath long enough to let the thoughts distill. Your mind will. It's just, you have to give it time and let go of the control, stay with the breath. And then it's like, wow, I feel different. Well, you've been doing this type of breathing. And then if you were to layer in then a yoga practice where I'm doing that breathing for an hour, at the same time I'm contorting my body into really uncomfortable, situations, but I'm using that breath to help keep me calm, then you step off the mat and you go, well, for a daily basis, if I'm doing a yoga practice, let's say 3 or 4 times a week for an hour, I'm spending 3 or 4 hours a week where my yoga mat is a lab where I'm exploring oh no, that doesn't feel good, but I get this breath that can keep me calm. Right. And then you're out in traffic and somebody cuts you off. And one day you just go, okay, whatever, they cut me off. and you realize it's changing me. You know what I mean? Like it's like you actually recognize the impact that it has in being able to keep you calm in difficult situations. So to take it all full circle and answer your question completely, if people would start a mindfulness practice by way of conscious breathing, a simple meditation practice, and just do it for 30 days straight, it would change the world.
Hear that, guys? Go and breathe. You don't have to take beta blockers so that you can drive around in traffic in LA and not want to kill anybody anymore. There's alternatives. Check it out. So, future plans, Mike. What is it that you plan to do? Are you going to continue writing, or to further explore the themes of the Unlikely Yogi and other projects? So what's next on the journey?
Well, so I took this last year off. I actually taught middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th health 2 years ago for the school year after moving back to Georgia after writing the book, and taught mindfulness in schools. So I took this last year off. My wife, Barbara, was diagnosed with breast cancer last August. So I took the year to take care of her, get her back on her feet, make sure my son was good. And in that time, I built the website. So I think it's interesting to me that now, as we're putting this last year behind us, these other opportunities to help people, develop mindfulness practices and to work with kids are kind of just coming to me. So I expect to expand that. I'm looking forward to working with the baseball team this year and getting back into that world. So I think, certainly helping young athletes. It's interesting you brought up tennis. I have a tennis prodigy down in South Florida that I work with as an individual client right now. He's in the middle of his college search and doing that whole thing, but we've taught him to effectively manage emotions on the tennis court, like you were talking about earlier. So I think just being in that world, whether it's working with different groups, organizations, I see, youth sports is just it's just on a different level these days, and it's necessary. With my son coming up, like you were saying, what you see on the tennis court, I see it on the baseball field every weekend. See it in the basketball court, and it's not just the players. I mean, it's the coaches and the parents and the whole, everybody's lost their mind a little bit out there, or can easily do it. I mean, I think that's the thing is anyone can be emotional, but when the world is shifted like it has, and we have so much information coming to us, and we're so distracted by the amount of information we have, that everybody can tend to be a little bit more on edge than we ever have been.
Yeah,
and
bro. Tensions are high right now.
Yes.
Because there's just a constant bombardment of just information, whether it be negative or positive. It's coming at you nonstop.
Yeah, and it's all too much. So, whether it's, like I said, whether it's somebody that wants to perform at a high level in the sport that they're playing, or it's just somebody who's dealing with some anxiety and depression, the benefits of a regular mindfulness practice they're huge. And we all need that awareness. Mindfulness is as simple as having the awareness that I'm sitting here just doing this. Oh, wait a second. I'm wasting my time. I'm literally mindlessly scrolling do something that has my attention, that offers me absolutely zero benefit in the moment, right? Now, we all know that the technology has provided all kinds of benefits. I mean, like, I wouldn't know my business partner if it wasn't for Facebook. So, there's lots of positives, but are you aware of how you're using it, or is it using you?
Yeah, I mean, it can kind of be like the supermarket. Of course, there's great things to eat at the supermarket, but there's also some really bad things to eat at the supermarket. So we kind of can look at it. I mean, it's a poor analogy, but it's just what popped into my head while you were explaining that. It's like there's salad, there's lettuce, there's nuts and berries, but there's also Doritos and, cheap tequila, and there's all kinds of stuff, crap you shouldn't be putting into your face. So, but we consume it anyway because it's there.
But to that point, okay, so let a sixth grader run loose in the grocery store, and what are they going to go grab?
Everything with bright colors,
right?
Tricks
so,
grab.
and so that's why I see. It's funny how, like I said, 10, 11 years ago, I was even a witch doctor, even working with pro athletes, to the point now where it's like high level, I'm not even high level youth athletes, but they're seeing that this is, it's something that's necessary. Like kids, this generation of kids that have been handed cell phones and the whole world that goes along with it in there really need this. And as they're getting older, all of them are going to need it, but it's just becoming more, people are becoming more aware of what's going on upstairs. I mean, as we continue to go. So,
yeah, I think we are kind of the kids in the candy store with phones and social media, because our generation, we had phones, but they didn't really do anything until, the early to mid 2000s. Mm-hmm. And now we're starting to kind of understand that everything that's inside the grocery store isn't good. Nutrition, a lot of it's negative nutrition for our mind, i.e. The grocery store being these mobile phones. Mm-hmm. So in the apps, there's great stuff on the phone, and there's an equal amount of horrible things on the phone that we need to be aware of. And when you're young, you don't know the difference. So being taught the difference, what is the healthy option versus what is it's Friday or whatever, I can have just this one day option. And I think that's a good point for a lot of people to start to try to understand what's happening with these phones, especially, and this is the conspiracy brain that kicks in, as it often does in the podcast. Once they start to integrate these devices into our heads and the singularity kicks in, you're not going to really have an option, because you're going to, I think, the feeds will then be right in front of us. And if you don't know how to control it now, you're really going to struggle to control it when it's like just everywhere you go, and you're walking around with screens in front of you floating around, and you're swiping at the air like you're wearing those Apple goggles. So teaching people, younger people, how to be more present and mindful, I think, is just something that I think it should be a school, a class in school. It's something that they need to learn how to master, let alone understand, because they're not inheriting the world that we had. Our worlds are completely different on so many different levels. Whenever I go home, I hang out with friends that I grew up with, and I got friends that most of their kids are in high school or approaching very soon. And I'll sometimes see them saying, "Oh, how do we do this? And how do I do this?" when they're doing their homework. And I look at that and I just go, "Oh my God, I don't even know what they're talking about." Mm-hmm. And you have to help them with this. So they need our help. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing, I think, is super great. So hopefully it can expand, and more people will take it on. I've got a friend in South Carolina. She works for Wells Fargo, and she does mindfulness corporate, like at her office, works in the office building, and they have retreats and things like that. I think she said she just put her first retreat together this year, and I like that it's I don't want to say catching on. That makes it sound like it's trendy and it's going to go away, but that it's actually just finding its place in our mainstream, because we've never really had it, and we definitely need it now more than ever, especially with with the phones and everything's politics and it's, war, and you don't know how to deal with that. Our brains weren't ever wired to accept and manage this much information. There's just no way that we could possibly function with all this information, and we need to learn how to mitigate some of the damage that it does to us.
Yeah, because it's not going anywhere. That's for sure. So I think this is just part of the pendulum shift that happens. I mean, it's kind of the law of nature, right? Like, there's no way that we can be completely bombarded and then not have, a group of people that's going to swing to the other side and say, hey, no. Like, we gotta pull this back. But it's in finding that balance, with moving forward with all the technology we've got, and, maintaining our humanity, I think is where it's at. So, I'll leave you with this. I'll leave you with this, Joseph. When people say they want to go back to a certain time when things were a certain way, and like, it's crazy that our generation now even is like, we're the ones that, well, when we grew up, it was, riding our bikes all day, and, we had to be home before dark and all that. And I think it's a normal reaction for people to take it the wrong way too, and to say, well, in that time it wasn't all that great for everyone, or, what was going on culturally and this sort of thing. And I think, because I know a lot of these people, like my mom and dad are boomers, and I have a lot of friends in that generation. And in looking at it and in knowing those people and understanding it too from our perspective of, like, or at least mine, I didn't grow up with so much technology, right? It was the phones came in like around high school or after high school, and not everybody even had them until, like, I was just getting out of college. I think it's the idea that we were always more thoughtful of one another because you weren't distracted. Like, when I was walking through a door and I would notice that someone was behind me because I wasn't looking at my phone. It wasn't an option. So with that, I would hold the door open for somebody and like, oh yeah, and you would engage with people. And it was just that by virtue of the way that we lived, you couldn't help but be more thoughtful of one another because that was all that you had in the world around you. And now we've created our own world around us that is, it's all about what's going on here. And everyone's so self-absorbed in all of that we're just not as thoughtful. We're not as mindful. We're not paying attention to what this person's doing next to me. I'm looking at my phone while I'm driving 10 miles an hour under the speed limit, even though I got people behind me, right? Like, oh, excuse us for what you have going on with your phone right now. I know what you've got. That's more important. But that's the reality of the world that we live in that just wasn't a reality 30 years ago, So while, yes, there were a lot of other things that were different too, I think that's the general, like, that's the intent behind the message when people say that. And I wish we could understand that more. I wish more people were open to that and understand, like, we're not trying to say that, the way that everybody's living right now is just completely wrong. But I would say that we need to pull back a little bit in certain ways and just pay attention to what we're doing. Just pay attention without all of, just like you said, the massive amount of information that we have dealing with that we can't possibly be able to process. So that's it. Hopefully we can help people pay attention a little bit better.
Awesome. I think the younger generation is probably going to be on board with that. I talked to a fair number of 16 to early 20s through people that I know at the gym, or maybe friends who have children, and they're not as interested. So I think there's hope. It's going to mess the next generation behind us, but the guys behind them, they're keeping hope alive. They're keeping hope alive. Mike Fecht, The Unlikely Yogi. Shout out your socials. Where can people buy the book?
You can get it on Amazon, An Unlikely Yogi. And website is presentstatewellness.com. And then we're working, you can go to Present State Wellness on YouTube as well. We're just working on building that out a little bit. There's not a whole lot there to share just yet, but there's got some great courses on the website. Would love to hear from more people and engaging in those courses and like I said, helping people become a little bit more mindful one day at a time.
Nice. Guys, go check it out. Follow the socials. Go check out the website. Enhance your life. Feel better about yourself. This guy's going to help you do it. Mike Fecht, thanks for joining us today. Check him out, guys.
Thanks, sir.